Hi, grade fives. Welcome back for lesson 3. We're going to take a look at quadrilaterals, give some names to certain types of quadrilaterals or four-sided shapes, and go through some of the attributes or just things we know about them. A lot of this is going to be familiar. We're just going to give you some extra terminology to look at. So if you're in your textbook, page 230 and forward. So we're just going to start by looking at the different types of quadrilaterals that we're going to deal with this year and you'll deal with next year. So we're going to look at squares and rectangles, rhombuses, parallelograms, trapezoids, and then kites are on the next page. We're going to break them into categories and just go over some of the things that allow us to classify a square as a square or a rectangle as a rectangle. So if you look at this top one here with a square, I'm just going to write these out as a little chart so you can see. So what do we know about a square? The most obvious thing is it has 4 equal sides. Okay, we know that, right? It's got the hatch marks here, which make it really easy. Okay, these red lines that are here are called diagonals. Okay, they go across the shape in a diagonal from kind of opposite corners. So these diagonals are equal length. Okay, that's going to be really important here. The diagonals are also perpendicular. I'm just going to write perp for perpendicular just to keep it short-ish. Okay, so if it has all of those things, and it has to have all of them, the shape is considered a square. Okay, I'm going to do rhombus next because they kind of go together. Okay, so what makes a rhombus different from a square? If you look at this picture, okay, it's got 4 equal sides as well. Okay, so does that mean that a square is a rectangle, or a square is a rhombus and a rhombus is a square? Not necessarily, because we got a little bit more to do. Okay, a rhombus also has diagonals, okay, but the diagonals are not equal length. I'm just going to write unequal. I can fit it. Unequal length. Okay, and then the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular, so they make a right angle there. So the diagonals perpendicular. Okay, so both a square and a square and a rhombus have 4 equal sides. They both have diagonals that are perpendicular, but in the square the diagonals are equal length, and in a rhombus the diagonals are unequal length. If you look at this picture, okay, of a rhombus, looks like tilty square. So it looks like somebody took a square and just kind of pushed it over a little bit. That's an easy way to tell if it's a rhombus by looking at it, but you got to go through all these attributes as well. Okay, so we'll do rectangle and parallelogram next. Okay, so what makes a rectangle a rectangle? Most of you look at it and you know what it looks like, but let's make sure we have all the proper information. So it's got what we call 2 pairs, equal, opposite sides. Okay, so these 2 sides are opposite and they're equal length, and these 2 sides are opposite and they're equal length. Okay, so that's what equal, opposite and equal mean, equal and opposite. Okay, so the rectangle has that. It has diagonals, and the diagonals are equal length. But we're not going to worry about them being perpendicular. If they were perpendicular, that would make it a square, which is not the case. Okay, so that was pretty easy. We know what rectangles are. Okay, a parallelogram it has 2 pair, equal, opposite sides. Okay, so it's the same as the rectangle. And that's all the information it gives us. Okay, we don't talk about the diagonals. diagonals. But if you drew them out, you would definitely see that the diagonals are unequal length. The thing that is going to be the biggest giveaway for a parallelogram, it looks like tilty rectangle. It looks like somebody took a rectangle and kind of shoved it over a little bit. So that's going to be the really big giveaway for that one. This last little bit talks about parallel sides. Ooh, I actually did a good one that time. Okay, so they all have two pairs of parallel sides. Remember, parallel is they'll go on forever without touching. Okay, they're equal distance apart. So one pair, two pair, one pair, two pair, one pair, two pair, one pair, two pair. You notice it doesn't matter if they're vertical or horizontal. It's just they're parallel. Okay, so the square has two pairs, the rectangle has two pairs, the parallelogram has two pairs, and the rhombus has two pairs of parallel sides. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's the final thing because it's going to come important in the next part. So the next one is the trapezoid. Okay, pretty cool shapes. I like trapezoids. Okay, it has exactly one pair parallel sides. Okay, and you'll notice they look different here. Okay, so these two lines are parallel. Okay, they go on forever, and they'll never touch. Okay, this is your very typical. This is the red pattern block. If you've ever used pattern blocks before. Okay, this shape has one pair of parallel. These two sides are not parallel. These two sides are. But the shape's totally different from this one. So when we're looking at a trapezoid, the only thing I care about is it has one pair of parallel sides. Done. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Okay. Typically, it looks like this. That's a very, very, very typical trapezoid. Okay. It could look like this. Okay. That could be a trapezoid. Last one we have to talk about here, okay, is a kite. Okay, it looks totally different, and it has two pairs of equal adjacent sides. Adjacent meaning next to each other or side by side. Next to side by side. Okay, so if you look in this one here, okay, these two sides are next to each other. They're connected at a vertex, and they are equal length. These two sides are next to each other, and they are equal length. Therefore, this is a kite. Okay, remember we're talking about quadrilaterals, so they have four sides. Four-sided shapes. Put that in a little box so you don't miss it. This shape, I always think of this as like the symbol from Star Trek. These two sides are next to each other. They are connected at a vertex. They are equal length. These two sides are connected to each other by a vertex. They are side by side. They are adjacent, and they are equal length. So this four-sided shape is classified as a kite. Again, it doesn't have to be just these two. It's typically what they will look like. But you could draw something else, and you may see some in your questions that they're classified as a kite, okay, but they don't necessarily look like this. So that's what we're looking for. So, super quick summary. Okay, with a square, we're looking at four equal sides, diagonals that are equal length, and diagonals are perpendicular, and it looks like a square. I'm pretty sure you all know what a square looks like. A rhombus is pretty close, four equal sides. Diagonals are perpendicular, but the diagonals are unequal length, and it looks kind of like a tilty square. Okay, that's going to give us a rhombus. Rectangle, we all know what a rectangle looks like, two pair of equal opposite sides. Okay, and then the diagonals are equal length. A parallelogram, two pairs of equal opposite sides. That we don't really talk about the diagonals, but they're unequal length. They're not perpendicular, and it looks like a tilty rectangle. That's the easiest thing to think about. All of these shapes, okay, all four of those, have two pairs of parallel sides. Okay, that's going to make them into one of those four. A trapezoid, one pair of parallel sides, okay, just like these two little samples I drew here. And a kite, two pairs of equal adjacent sides, adjacent meaning next to each other or side by side. Okay, we have the examples up here. I don't need to redraw them because they're on this page. Okay, so when we look at these questions that we're going to do, a lot of it is going to be classifying. Okay, so look at like this one here. Okay, which one of these is a rhombus? Okay, so you have to go through, look at the things that make a rhombus, and figure out which ones fit into that category. Which one is a trapezoid? Not all trapezoids look the same. Just like not all rhombuses are going to look exactly the same. So you got to use the criteria, what makes a trapezoid, and go into here and figure out which is going to be classified. So lots and lots of classifying. This riddle is a perfect example. Figure out the thing that applies. And then I'll tell you which ones you need to do. Number 7 is my favorite. There's something to do with squares and rectangles that I hope you figure out. I'll post it up on Classroom after. All right, any questions? You know where to find me. Send me an email, send me a message. I'll get back to you right away. Talk to you soon.